Let's have a conversation here on a Monday after a conference championship Sunday. Congratulations again to the Cincinnati Bengals and the LA Rams. Both teams on the road yesterday, getting a big-time win and on their way to a Super Bowl. Oh, that game was in LA. Oh, sorry about that. Thought it was a Niners home game. So anyways, we move on to some other news that has started to we talked about this a little bit before the weekend. I was like, well, this feels like we got some momentum brewing. And now apparently it's a wrap. Josh McDaniels, after years and years away, spent, I think, a season in St. Louis, but the longtime Patriots offensive coordinator reportedly on the verge of being named head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. So there it is. Old Josh Mack heading to the AFC West for the Raiders, and I'm assuming good news for Derek Carr and company. But if you're the Raiders, I don't think Josh McDaniels interviewed, if I'm not mistaken, for any other gigs this offseason. So the Raiders apparently are going to get their guy in Josh McDaniels. So
I can't wait to hear his explanation as to why this was the right fit or the timing. I mean, we talked about it Friday. To me, it has to do with the people and the personnel and the fact that Dave Ziegler was hired as their general manager, who comes from the Patriots organization as well. There has to be a thought behind, hey, man, if this guy's going somewhere and I get another shot to be a head coach, I want to make sure that I'm going somewhere where I'll be aligned with a general manager, someone I trust, because I don't want to have to take on that responsibility. That was something that he did take on with the Denver Broncos. And now I think when you've got someone you can trust and they're going to be able to do it the right way, and you can focus on coaching and managing your team, and if you want to call plays, so be it. But that's still at least taking off one of those hats that he wore previously as a Broncos head coach. So I think to me, it probably had to do with just that. And maybe he wants to get a little revenge on the Broncos too. You know, maybe he's saying, hey, I got the chance to take on the Broncos twice a year. Yeah, maybe that doesn't stink so bad either.
Oh, it's nice to have had the opportunity to live and learn, right? I mean, if you think about it, he's older now than what he was when he had the Broncos. He's probably learned. Yeah, he's a lot wiser by now, you'd have to assume. And we all have moments in our time where we look back on something that we did and could have done it better or done it differently to possibly have a different outcome. And for what it's worth, we talk about the Patriot way. We talked about Joe Judge during the course of this show. If you don't think that those guys are paying attention to that, at least the ones that are again, exercising more wisdom and understanding, he's not going to approach this job the same way he approached the Denver job. And he's going to have a different thought process as to what to do. It's a great market. It's a market that's looking for a winner. And if he can deliver in the Vegas market with a team that is relatively in good shape to win, and that's the reason why Gruden took the job, is great pay and a roster that has the potential with a few moves to be right there at it. And so to me, look, you get into that gig, clearly you got to add a receiver or two. You have a few things that you probably need to do, maybe along the offensive front, and moderate changes on the defensive side of the ball. This could be a really, really good team. So now you get an opportunity to get a reprieve on being what it was that you were in Denver. But you also have an opportunity to show that you could be a legitimate head coach in one of the toughest, that's probably going to be considered the toughest conference or toughest division in all of the league next year, the AFC West. I think it's a bold, ballsy move by McDaniel, but hey, show your worth, show your mettle. Why not?
And the closest he got to a job was the Colts, and we talked about this on Friday, Colts 4 years ago. And I look at it and I go, as far as paths go, like it felt like that would have been the better job because, Andrew Luck was still there, and it seemed like, that was a very winnable division. And, you look at it and go, why do you go back to New England? And I think the assumption was, Well, he probably was promised you're going to be the coach in waiting. They bumped his salary up a little bit and, stick around here. And then to leave now, the big question is why now? The other question I have is why didn't it work the first time in Denver? Outside of the obvious, they didn't win enough games. They started 6-0 and sort of fell apart. Was it personality? Did he just piss people off? Did he rub people the wrong way? Like, what sense?
Is there a right or wrong answer to that outside of what he thinks? See, to me, it's what he believes he could have done differently. I think that's the point. I don't know that anybody can put that isn't him can come in and say this is why it didn't work for him in that situation back then. I think that's something only he can truly answer.
Well, I think from playing for him for a year, I would say this. When I got there, it already felt like he was on the hot seat. He had been there the year before, got off to that great 6-0 start, finished 2-8 down the stretch. And there's a number of things that I think, for whatever reason, started to kind of turn the tide against him. One of them was maybe his relationship with the media. There was times, too, it was really odd to me only because, in most locker rooms on most teams, you hear a fair amount of profanity and different things that are said kind of on the sidelines, things like that during the course of a game. And there were a couple of moments where, people in the local media pointed stuff like that out. And you're going, well, this is like every sideline every Sunday or even every Saturday in college sports, too, in football.
And high school, too.
It was odd that there was a relationship, with the media that soured during that 2-8 finish of his first year in 2009. And then you get into 2010, and another year that didn't get off to a great start. He had traded up to take Tebow in the first round. I think there was this thought, and it wasn't communicated well to the masses. He didn't plan on ever using him as a quarterback, at least not any time in the short term. He had put in a separate package for him to be a wildcat quarterback for short yardage, goal line, those situations. That was it. Because they had struggled with that the year before in 2009. The problem is when they drafted him, he didn't lay out that, he didn't lay out that plan for people. So there were people clamoring, thinking, oh, he's going to come in and be the guy. And that particular year, he was reluctant to use him because he didn't know the offense. He looked awful in practice. And they didn't want to put him in if that was going to be the case. So it really took that with the media and what happened the year before, and then you roll that into the whole Spygate 2 thing. We're in London. Our film guy, Dante Scarnecchia, his son, Steve, gets popped for, filming their walkthrough there in London, the San Francisco 49ers. And that was basically the end of it. It was just a matter of time. And then Eric Studesville, took over, and then John Fox came in. But, those were essentially the biggest things. But I think when you look at, what he was attempting to do, he took on a lot. He tried to follow in the footsteps of Mike Shanahan. That was just too much for him. So I look at it, I definitely think there's some things he could take away. And I definitely think looking back on it, you could point to some things that you're saying, all right, this is where maybe he lost lost the local media, lost the people kind of helping to support him. This is maybe where he lost the fan base. Ultimately, if you don't win enough games, that's why. But there's some things that I think expedited his firing and moving on from him in Denver.
I forgot about that. The media complaining about the foul language. I forgot about that.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Man, you're searching. Super weird.
You're searching.
I remember.
Forgot about that.
I remember seeing something early the next season, and a player saying something about it, and I was going, "What? The media's complaining about foul language on a sideline on an NFL team? Is he the first coach to say the F word? What's happening?"
But please let us smoke weed legally. Just don't curse on the sidelines, everybody.
I wonder how many conversations Ziegler and McDaniel had during the course of this season when it became a possibility that this could be what ends up happening. I would doubt that there haven't been conversations between them at some point before Dave Ziegler got that job.
You would think about this, though.
Yeah.
I don't think they were intending to I don't know that there was any conversations, though, from Las Vegas. Just because there was a Vegas head coach, there wasn't a general manager. So, that'd be tampering if you're going to talk to a guy who's already somewhere else.
No, listen to what I'm saying. Not so much that, Vegas was talking to Ziegler about it. I'm saying Ziegler and McDaniel talking about it when it. I mean, like together, if this were like, just say for the sake of saying, I was able to take over this team, or you were able to take over that team. Do you think we could make that a winner? You know what I mean? Like, you'd have to assume they started having conversations.
See, but I wonder about that, because this thing feels like it came together pretty quick, because Josh McDaniels wasn't their first choice. There was, talk about Harbaugh. There was talk about, some other possibilities. Like, I wonder if something in the last week or so, some sort of communication.
It doesn't take long.
With Belichick.
I'm not saying these are long conversations, right? I'm just saying if I've been contacted and you've been contacted and we're in the same area and we're on the same team, there's got to be a conversation like, hey, if I took this job, I'm thinking about this job. What do you think?
Belichick must have said something to him, like, hey, man, I would go now.
They probably got the idea that, he's going to be here for a while. But either way, I think once Ziegler was up for it, and you'll recall, both these guys go back to John Carroll University. That's where Ziegler was in school. That's where McDaniels went to school. They both played at John Carroll. And so they knew each other previously from college. And then obviously things, I'm sure, continued with their relationship in New England. And I'm sure once Ziegler got the interest, he's probably saying to Josh, like, come on, dude, like, let's do it. Like this is what we talked about. Right. And I'm sure Josh is saying, well, who else would I rather want to go work with? I mean, at this point, like, do I really want to stay here with this roster when I feel like I'm looking at the Raiders who aren't too far off, and it's Vegas and it's everything else. I don't have to wait for it.
Especially considering what you just presented in terms of how he was handled in Denver, personnel-wise speaking. I mean, you want to have that support when you make a pick. You don't want to have to feel like you're being pressured because this was your pick.
This is good news for Derek Carr, no? I mean, as far as we've talked, because there's a lot of people that talk about, and I was asking Brady this off the air one time, like, who are the best play callers in the NFL? McDaniels is up there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, Ziegler and I believe Ziegler and Josh worked together in Denver. There's a lot of history between the two, and that's why I'm saying I don't know that this conversation really came up until that opportunity presented itself to Ziegler. And once that was there, then it's like, okay, like, who do you want your head coach to be? Josh McDaniels. That's my first and best, and make this guy the head coach, and we're rolling.
It's Two Pros and a Cup of Joe, Fox Sports Radio. The BQ News coming up here in about 10 minutes from now on FSR. There is some on the Josh McDaniels story, taking the Raiders head coaching job. There's some thought, well, who's going to replace him in New England? And the name everybody's throwing out there, right?
Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, Billy O.
But don't you feel like that'd be a lateral move? And I also wonder why, like, temperatures have cooled on interest in Bill O'Brien as a potential head coach for a number of vacancies that are still open. Doug Peterson, remember he was like first thrown around, and everyone thought he was going to get a job. I mean, it seems like everything's quiet on that front.
Yeah.
And then we haven't heard anything about Eric Bieniemy. I mean, you don't have any concerns now about interviewing. They're not playing the Super Bowl, so they don't have to wait another 2 weeks, to make it official. They can hire them whenever they want. So I do wonder, like, those three guys, if anything, will continue to kind of surface here with some of the head coaching vacancies that are still out there at the moment.
Well, here's one for you, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but let's just follow along with me here. I got an idea. So if Bill O'Brien does take the Patriots job, maybe he says, I want to go work with Mac Jones or whatever he wants. His reasoning is. Say he takes the Patriots offensive coordinator job. Now all of a sudden, the Alabama Crimson Tide have an opening for an offensive coordinator, and it's been known as the reclamation destination. Like, if you want to get your career back on track.
You thinking Joe Brady's going to go there?
Well, no, I'm looking at, you look at Steve Sarkisian, you look at Lane Kiffin, you look at Bill O'Brien. There's one career that definitely needs a reclamation. There's one career that needs to be revived, and that's John Gruden. What about John Gruden, offensive coordinator of the Alabama Crimson Tide? I'm telling you, listen, like, the guy's got to get his career back on track.
Nobody's going to touch it.
I call that the turkey hole.
I agree, and he's deleted those emails. They are long gone. He has learned his lesson. All right, so John Gruden, offensive coordinator of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Who says no?
I mean,
come on.
Everybody is expected to be extended grace. Everybody from those emails are going to be expected to be forgiven, except for possibly Bruce Allen. But think about it. the owner of the Washington football team is probably the most high-profile, biggest name connected to those emails, and he will still be able to seemingly be the owner of the team that he has. So why wouldn't it make sense to give him a reprieve?
Steve Sarkisian was drunk on the sidelines at a game.
It's not different.
They smelled bourbon on his breath.
Different.
It's like a coach.
That's different.
This is not a conversation
It's different.
or a hill I'm willing to die on.
I'm just saying,
so you can take that bad take and put Jonas Knox all
That's
over
fine.
and save that crap for Saturdays.
All I'm saying is you follow the coaches who want to get their career back on track. John Gruden, offensive coordinator of the Alabama Crimson Tide.
That's probably the wrong place for him to go.
No, I'm just.
There's probably not any really good place, but Alabama might be the worst of the worst places.
I wasn't thinking that. I wasn't thinking along those lines. All right. It is two pros and a cup of Joe, Fox Sports Radio. I don't know why Lee told me to say that.